Okay, but that's good to know because I feel like a lot of the publishing industry, especially traditional publishing, is kind of behind closed doors and you don't really know until like you're behind it. So I love getting those little tidbits from like authors like you who are willing to share what their experiences like with publishers and things like that, because it's golden nuggets. I'm telling you. But okay, so we spent the majority of the time talking about Not So Pure and Simple. Not gonna lie, like I said, it's one of my favorite books of 2020. I would even say probably of like the last 10 years that I've read. It's just, I love that book so much. And I've been like telling everybody I know, like, you gotta read this book. Have you read it? You can get it from the library. It's fantastic. Just so you know, you can get it from the library. It's fantastic. If you're not, you can request it. That's totally free. Okay? Just so you know. But that being said, you also have two middle grade books out right now. The Last Day of Summer and The Last Mirror on the Left, which just came out, is it this month or last month?
October 20th.
October 20th. So not even a full 30 days yet, right?
Yeah.
So first of all, congratulations on
Thank
your
you.
umpteenth book. And I have been reading The Last Day of Summer. I haven't gotten all the way through to the end yet, so not going to be doing super deep spoilers, but I'm really enjoying it, and that's saying something because I don't read middle grade a whole lot unless it's something like horror, because I'm a scaredy cat and I have to read little kid horror. But I picked up The Last Day of Summer because, first of all, I love the cover, right? You very rarely get to see two black boys on an adventure, and they're just on an adventure, right? And
yeah.
Sheed and Otto are very distinct, right? Because I also feel like a lot of times when you have cousins or family members, they either hate each other and don't like spending time together, or they're like best buds, perfectly in sync, they never clash, and if they do clash, it's like a problem. But I felt like Sheed and Otto were so, I keep using this word, relatable. Your characters are very relatable, and I really like that. But yeah, they're just like, she's just like, I want to sleep, homie, chill. Like, it's the last day. We've been on all these adventures. We've done what you wanted to do all summer. Let me sleep. And Otto's like, no. Do you know that Ellison's got one more key than us? Not having it. Let's do it. We got to go find something. I can live with the tie, right? But really, we should get two keys so we have one more than them. And I love the rivalry. So, like, these books are totally different, right? Not So Pure and Simple, yeah. And Fake ID, Endangered are completely different from The Last Day of Summer. So, like, what got you into writing middle grade, and like, what was the inspiration specifically for this book?
Well, before I tell the story, I got to shout out Dapo Adiala because you brought up the illustrations. Mm-hmm. He's an illustrator. He lives in London. He's a genius. I don't know that those books would have half the impact they do without his depiction of these characters front and center. So I always try to make sure I say his name when we talk about these books. And in terms of how they came to be, this is the true story. Okay. I was in grad school, 2016. I come home from class one night and I get a text message from Kwame Alexander. Do you know Kwame?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know him personally, but yeah. I know who he is.
For those who don't know, Kwame Alexander is a children's literature superstar. He won the Newbery Medal back in 2015 for his book and verse crossover, and he now has an imprint with Houghton Mifflin called Versify, and that imprint publishes my middle grade. And I've known Kwame for years, and because he was doing so much in the industry, when he decided to put his imprint together, he hit me up and said, hey, if you have any interest in writing middle grade, I'd love to hear. And I hadn't honestly thought about it that much before, but since he brought it up, I started to remember all the great books I loved when I was that age, particularly The Phantom Toll Booth. Okay. And if you know The Phantom Toll Booth, which has a lot of wordplay, a lot of idioms, is a heavy inspiration for The Last Day of Summer. And so since he was asking me, I sat there and thought about it. And the thing that always frustrated me when I was a young reader was how many times, almost every time, we were presented with stories in my school with my friends where the characters weren't anything like us. Mm-hmm. And I said, now that I have the opportunity, I'm going to write some kids that remind me of the kid I was and the kids I grew up with.
Well, I think you did a really great job because, like I said, I love reading about Sheed and Otto because they're not just one thing, especially Sheed. Sheed is my favorite. I know, like, they're technically a package deal, but Sheet is my favorite. And I just like his personality. He's down for Otto and all their adventures, but at the same time, he's like, look, this is your fault. And he's mad, right? He gets so mad. Like, why? We could have just slept, right? We could have just stayed in bed, but no, you wanted to go on an adventure. You just had to tempt fate, and now look what you did. Look what you done did, you know? and I am at the part, I'm about a quarter of the way through the book, and we just met up with the Ellison sisters, and he's like googly-eyed over Lena. And I'm just like, Lean. Lean. And I'm just like, go ahead, boy. Just go ahead and be just you awkward preteen boy. I'm loving it. And it's so wholesome. It is so cute and fun, and I loved it. So I'm loving it because I'm still reading it. So, and I guess I want to say thanks because like I have little cousins, right? And when I think of like things that I want to get them, because you know Christmas is coming up in the holidays, and they're not big readers, right? But I remember, and this is odd, right? Because it just came back to me. I remember when I was a kid, I have an older brother. He's 3 years older than me, and I remember I used to be so jealous because he had the bookshelf in his room, and my room was too small for a bookshelf. So whenever I wanted to read something, I had to go in his room, and he was always like, "Why are you in here?" I'm like, "You have the books." And so I remember asking him once, I was like, why don't you enjoy reading? It's so fun. And he was just like, no, it's not. Like, none of the books, what am I reading for? You know, none of the books are like me. And I'm like, okay. And I could somewhat understand because there weren't a whole lot of books with black girls either. Like, I'm telling you, side note, 2019 was amazing because when I started doing research and I saw all these books with black girls on the cover, I was like, yes! Okay, we're finally doing it. Okay. Only took, 21 centuries, but whatever.
It reminds me that 10 years ago, or maybe a little more, publishing was actually actively changing people of color on their covers to white people because they figured that was the only way to sell the book. So I'm happy to see the same thing you've been seeing, which is all these children of color all over these book covers now.
Yes. And I'm like, okay, side note. Again, if people who watch the channel, you already know the story. But for me, Justina Ireland's Dread Nation is the one where I was minding my own business, sitting on my couch, scrolling through the stuff on the library. And I'm like, hold up, pause. This is a black girl on the cover. This is fantasy. Let me read this real quick. And then I was so excited, and it just like pulled me down a rabbit hole of all these other books that by black authors featuring, girls of color as the main character, not just the sidekick, not just the best friend. And that's what I also loved about your books, not so pure and simple. Like, you have an entire person of color cast. Same thing with Sheet and Otto. It's nice to be able to see your own experience in a book, right? Which kind of brings me back to the point of, I'm really glad that you wrote the book, because like I have cousins that I'm like, they're not real big on reading either, and that could just be like a personal choice. If I have anything to do with it, I'm going to change their mind about it. But it's like I can gift them this book and know for certain that, okay, if you don't like this book, it's not because you can't see yourself in it, and it's not because it's a poorly written book or because it's boring. It's because you don't like it. Okay, you don't like reading. That's something completely different. And I had a question, but honestly, I just want to rant and rave because you're such an amazing writer, and I love your book so much.
Thank you. Well, I do want to say this. I want to second Dread Nation by Justina Ireland. That's just a fantastic book, and I'm happy you enjoyed it. I enjoyed it as well.
Like, this is a side note that I know my husband knows this, and LaCase, she's usually my co-host on these, but she is otherwise unavailable, right? But I have this thing called broken characters that I just absolutely love, and it's basically just characters who don't do the right thing just to say that they're doing the right thing, that they have a purpose or a reason, and they're self-complained, excuse my French, assholes, right? Mm-hmm. And I just love that, because when I read Dread Nation and when I read Jane, she was like, yeah, I'm a liar and I do what I want to, and that's just who I am. And I think that was the first time that I ever read somebody who was like, yeah, I'm not nice to be nice, and I was specifically a Black girl who was like, I'm not trying to please everybody. I'm just trying to make it, And if it don't fit what I'm trying to do, then okay, bump it. We're going to find another way. So.
Yeah, Justina knocked it out of the park on that one. I really love that book. So yeah, anybody out there who's looking for a read, that's a great one to pick up.
Absolutely. But we're not talking about Justina. We're talking about you. So.
I got to shout out my people, though. I got to shout out my people,
For sure. I mean, okay, let's do that. There are so many amazing people in publishing. Is there anybody that you just want to be like, hey, if you haven't read them, go read them?
Okay, so I would say Justin Reynolds, who wrote The Opposite of Always and Early Departures is a new book. And I think he's doing a Miles Morales book for Marvel. So he's doing a Spider-Man book. So if you're not on Justin's work, I would highly recommend. Let me see, and I forgive me because not that I don't know a lot of people, but I know so many people that it's hard to distill it down.
When you put on the spot, it's just like, oh snap, my bad. I didn't mean to forget you, homie.
Always Tiffany D Jackson. If you don't know her work, she Grown is the latest book. That was fantastic.
She also did Monday's Not Coming, didn't she?
Say again?
Monday's Not Coming. That's her book,
isn't
it?
That's a fantastic book.
And allegedly?
Allegedly was one of hers. And see, now I feel like I got to pull my phone out so I can see what I've been reading lately, because this is always happens to me. I can never think on the spot. Oh. And I don't want to,
Yeah.
Hold on.
I mean, go ahead. I'm not going to stop you.
Hold on. Where is my app? What have I been reading lately? Oh, The Black Kids by Christina
Hammond.
Yeah.
I have that one.
That was fantastic. I'm going to stop there because I feel like I'm going to feel like I'm missing people. Those are three I would put you on right away.
Okay. So there you have it, folks. If you had to pick three off the top of his head, not shading anybody, all right? Mm-hmm. You got Jason Reynolds. Justin Reynolds. There's
Jason Reynolds too. There's Jason Reynolds too, who I always would recommend, but I feel like everybody in the world knows Jason now.
Yes. But it's Justin A. Reynolds, right?
Justin A. Reynolds.
Yes. Yeah. He's got Early Departures and Opposite of Always. And Opposite of Always, I have heard a lot about. And if you're watching this on YouTube, that means you know about BookTube and what it does. And so you can go watch a BookTube video about that, because it was very popular when it came out. And I am planning to get it as well. So you can stay tuned for the Written Melanin review of that. But that and Early Departures, both of those, side note, are on my list to get. I watched your video with him and Ben Philippe.
And Damon?
Yes.
Yeah.
I watched it and I was like, I have to go get the book. Because I had already read your book, but then I was like, Early Departures was already on my list of things that I wanted to get, as well as Ben Philippe's Charming as a Verb. And I was just like, it was a great video, by the way. I don't know can you link to it? Was it live? I know it was live, but I don't know if there's like a link where you can go watch a replay of it.
I don't see. I'm terrible about this. Like, I'm literally in the new year. I think I'm gonna, and I guess I'm putting it out for the public. If anyone knows, I may be looking for an assistant because I have a hard time keeping track of those links and things, and so there's probably a link out there. I don't know where it is right off the top of my head.
Okay. So if you missed it, I don't have a link to share with you guys. I watched it live, but it was an amazing conversation, and okay, I'm getting off topic. Look, Tamar, you got to keep me on topic. I'm enjoying
this conversation a great deal, so it's fine.
I will be so far left field, we will lose the complete and utter plot of everything. But yes, to finish up my thought, it was a great conversation. If you guys search the internet for it and you find the link, let me know, and I will link it to this video so that you can watch it. But those are definitely other books. So Justin A. Reynolds, not Jason. Justin A. Reynolds, Tiffany D Jackson.
But you can read Jason Reynolds too, though.
Yes.
They're both very much worth their time, particularly Stamped, which Jason Reynolds did with Dr. Kendi. But yeah, Justin A. Reynolds, Tiffany D Jackson, and The Black Kids by Christina. What's her full name? I'm sorry, I'm blanking now.
It's Christina Hammond, I want to say.
Okay, yeah.
I can Google it because I have the internet, you guys, and the internet is fantastic.
I am so bad with this. I apologize.
So yeah, but Christina Hammond's Read. There we go.
Yep.
Christina Hammond's Read. And it's a beautiful cover. It's black and pink, and it's got a beautiful black girl on the front, and it's amazing. I haven't read it yet, but it is on my actual bookshelf to read at some point when I have time. Sidetracked. If you want to know the description of it, I have a Melanin Spotlight video where we talk about that. So, okay, back to the task at hand. So we have the last day of summer, and basically in the book, Otto and Sheed Otto's not ready for summer to be over, and so he's like, I wish we could stop, savor this last day. And Sheed's just like, I'm just trying to sleep and chill, right? And then here comes a stranger who's like, hey, I have a camera, why don't you just take a picture to savor the moment? And they do, and they end up, royally screwing some stuff up that they have to undo, right? So, okay, I have an idea of what's coming, right? Because like I said, I'm only like a little over a quarter of a way through the book, and it's wild. But what led you to say to them being like, okay, we're gonna stop time, right? Because you're talking about time. It's not just stopping time. You're talking about stopping time, time managers, time traveling. There's a whole lot happening, and I just want to know where it comes from. Like, can you share where your creative inspiration is? I would like to.
Here's the truth. I don't remember exactly how I got to the time freezing thing, but what I do remember is that I wanted to throw in a bunch of stuff I thought was cool when I was their age. And the thing, like one of my favorite movies from when I was Otto and Sheed's age was Back to the Future.
I love Back to the Future. Okay.
And so I knew if I'm throwing in a bunch of stuff, time stuff is cool. That's just what my time stuff.
Yeah.
And somehow I got to, they take this picture that freezes the whole town. I don't know exactly where that part came from. No, I really can't remember now, which is strange because I have found, and this could be a symptom of me aging, I have found like I can go back and look at some of the books and not remember what inspired a particular thing. Mm-hmm. I've experienced this more than once now. Someone posted a quote from my novel Spin and tagged me in it, and I have absolutely no memory of writing it. And
I don't think that's just you, though. I don't think that's a symptom of aging. It's just like, oh, yeah. that sounds good. I wrote that? Wow. Yeah. Okay. I'll take it.
So I can't speak to where the time freeze came from, but I can tell you I was generally thinking I want to throw a bunch of Back to the Future stuff in here.
Okay. It works. Because, like I said, I'm not even into middle grade like that, and I'm like, I need to know where this goes. I need to know who the secret stranger is. I need to know how they stop Mr. Flux. I need to know how they unfreeze the town. I want to know what Grandma's gonna do once she get unstuck, because she seemed like she's not gonna take well to having to stand at the stove all day.
We love Grandma. We love Grandma so much.
Yeah. Is she based off of anybody in real life, or any of the characters for that matter?
Yeah, Grandma's my grandma. I mean, my grandma she's much older now, so like she doesn't move around as well as she used to, so it's not so much being at the stove and making. But when I remember being young, the stuff that Grandma does in the book would be what my grandma was doing when I was staying over there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and that makes sense. I feel like it's so strange because I feel like everybody has a collective grandma experience. Like, don't touch that, don't break it, and the house is going to smell on point. Like, it doesn't matter when you come, what you're doing, it's going to smell like you need to eat a full Thanksgiving dinner, like, right now.
Well, that food is going to be crazy anytime you stop by.
Yep, it's going to be on point. You're going to gain 10 pounds by the time you leave. It's going to be worth it. Mm-hmm. So, okay. Coming up, we're at an hour, so I'm going to try to be concise with your next questions. Okay, so your book, Last Mirror on the Left, just came out on the 20th. What can you tell us about that? Like,
Well, so I'll try to do this without spoiling Last Day.
Okay.
One thing that happens in Last Day that I have to spoil is the boys discover there's a secret prison in the middle of town.
Oh, yes, the prison warden with the mirror lady, the crazy mirror lady.
And something they do in Last Day may have helped some criminals escape. And the warden has tasked them with helping her apprehend these fugitives, or she's going to sentence them to a prison cell. And the thing is, they didn't escape into the town they know. They escaped through a mirror that leads to an alternate universe. And so the boys have to go to this place we call Warped World to try to catch these criminals. But when they get there and start to learn more, they end up questioning if the justice system really is what they think it is, and are they helping to serve it or corrupt it?
I like it. Okay. So, and that is the one that is available now. I will leave a link to it in the description box below, as well as the last mirror on the last day of summer, so that you can get both. And you mentioned that you have a third one coming up, so I'm assuming it's either, is this like a series or is it a trilogy, and this is the end of it?
It's not necessarily the end. This will be the last Otto and She book for a while.
Okay.
It's called The Last Chance for Logan County, and it'll be out next year. And the reason we're taking a break from Otto and She is because we're going to spin Wiki and Lean off into their own series.
Yes, I was going to ask you if we're going to get the Ellison sisters. So I'm excited.
Yes. Because the thing I set up was that Wiki and Lean do what Otto and She do, but they're kind of better at it. And that's like a running gag that the boys are always trying to catch up and be as good as Wiki and Lean. But I always knew I had to reconcile why the best team didn't have their own stories. Mm-hmm. And so that's what we're going to move into now. And Wiki and Lean's adventures will not be limited to Logan County. Like, there'll be a larger world with hopefully larger stakes.
Okay. So, wow, that was a really bad analogy, and it was so 2000s of me. I'm sorry. In my head, I was like, oh, so they're kind of like Kim Possible and Ron Stoppable saving the world, but then you have the boys, they're just in the county, and so their world is like a lot smaller, and so that's why they're like obsessed. Okay, I love it. And I'm not mad that the girls are better than the guys. I'm not even gonna be upset about that, but I'm excited to read it because, like, as soon as they were introduced and I saw the pictures from them, I was like, they're so cute. And I love the touch that the one with the short hair and the mechanic is also the one who likes like flowery dresses. That just seemed perfect. I was like, yep, that's on brand. It tracks.
I remember talking about it with Dapo, and I was like, look, Lean has to have a flowy flowery dress with her tool belt on. Like, that's the image I need in place. And he delivered as always.
And it hits perfectly because I was like, it's the multifacetedness of your characters. Like, they're not just one thing. Like, she could be girly and also a mechanic, and the other one could be super smart but also kind of tomboyish with her Air Jordans and her plaid shirts. You know, even though they're twins, you know, and they're supposed to be exactly the same. It's like they're very, very clearly different. And I like that Sheed is like, he likes Lean and that he can tell them apart, right? Because that's the other thing that you get with twins, is a lot of people can't tell them apart. But Otto and Sheen have no problem telling the difference between Wiki and Lean.
Oh yeah,
their names rhyme.
No. They know their rivals well.
Yeah. So I'm excited to see that. I can't wait. I'm looking forward to it. I'm trying to think. Is there anything else that I can ask you while I have you here? I don't know. I just, like I said, I just love it so much. Okay. So, last two questions, and then we are going to wrap this up. The first one being, if you could have anyone read your book and take anything from it, who would it be, and what would you want them to take from it?
Well, I guess it would depend on the book. So, like, for Not So Pure and Simple, I really would love for boys to read the book and question their own behavior. Like, as they laugh at Dell, they also may recognize characteristics they exude and maybe wonder, like, am I doing the right thing? And determine if they're not, to do something better. So more than anything, I think with Not So Pure and Simple, that's what I'm aiming for. With the middle grade books, Last Day and Last Mirror, I would love for people to just get pure joy out of it and recognize that the biggest fantasy element that I want to see more of is that this is a southern town where these two black boys are beloved. Mm-hmm. Like I said, we got monsters, we got magic, but to me, that's one of the biggest fantasy elements that I hope comes across.
You know, it's wild that you say that, because it's just like, when you think of a fantasy book, you think, like you said, of monsters and magic, but it's also kind of crazy that they can just go into a hardware store, they have a tab, and everybody's greeting them, and they're not stalking them, right? Like, they're literally allowed to go into the store and take what they need, and the hardware owner is not questioning them or thinking that they're stealing. He's helping them. He knows who they are, you know, and it's wild that has to be fantasy, you know? But I'm glad that you're writing it, and I'm glad that you're depicting a world where it is, you know, and it's not crazy. It just, that's how it works, because that's how it should be, you know? They shouldn't be threatening. They're literal kids, you know?
Yeah.
So, but that's a conversation, a heavier conversation that we're not going to have right now.
Yeah.
And last question, and this is the one that I ask every author who I have the pleasure of speaking to on the channel, and that is, if you could go back and give your younger writing self some advice, what would it be, and what age would you give it to yourself?
If I could give my younger writing self some advice, I'd probably go to 15-year-old me and say, there's nothing wrong with this. You don't have to be different. You can keep going. It doesn't matter if they don't get it. Because that was around the time when I probably came closest to giving up and just trying to be what I thought was expected of a boy, a black boy, where I lived, which was be sort of like an athletic jerk. Neither one of those things I was good at being. And so can you imagine someone trying to pretend to be athletic and being terrible on the court and the field, and also trying to pretend to be mean and sort of the stuff that Dell does, but it just doesn't work because that's not you.
Yeah.
So that's the advice that I would have told my 15-year-old self. Like, you don't have to pretend to be this other thing. You're good enough as is.
That's a word of advice for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Heed his words, you guys. Because especially if you are watching this video and you are a teenager, because the people who are in your life in high school, like, guaranteed you will grow, you will leave high school one day, and you will forget those people, and you will not even remember their last names. It will happen, guaranteed.
It's shocking how fast it happens in retrospect. Like, it feels eternal when you're going through it, and then if you're my age, it's 25 years later, and you can't remember what these people look like.
To be fair, I was gone like 6 months out of high school, and I was like, who are you? I'm sorry, have we met? But that is it, you guys. That is all that I can ask him without completely consuming the rest of his day. So we're going to end the interview here, and if you have watched it, thank you so much for tuning in and watching. I said that twice, but you guys know what I mean. All right? But that's it for this Behind the Cover interview. If you enjoyed the video, please tap the like button, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notifications so you don't miss any other videos. There are new channels on the video every week. And if you enjoy supporting Black authors, then consider supporting Written in Melanin through our Patreon. There's a link in the description box below if that is your thing. If not, check it out anyway. It could be your thing. And that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, I hope your days are lovely and your books are interesting. Bye.